Welcome back to HR Wired right here on Africa Business Radio. Yes, we are at our last segment on the show this morning. And we are talking about the current trend in HR technology across Africa. And of course, we have an expert for you who's going to be helping us to unpack what is happening, across globally first and bringing back home on the continent of Africa. We have Dr. Anish on the show on the line with us. He's the founder and the CEO of JOB. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. Please tell us about what you do and what JOB is all about as well.
So, yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of JOB, and JOB is effectively a fully automated digital recruitment solution.
Okay.
That basically helps job seekers get more access to job opportunities using only their cell phone.
Okay.
And we're a South African company. We're based in South Africa. And we focus on really the kind of medium to low income workers, people who are earning kind of less than, $1,000 a month. Probably the average salary would be something like about, $400, $300 a month. And, obviously in Africa, in South Africa particularly, the unemployment rate is very high. And one of the reasons for this is simply that a lot of people don't have access to opportunities. They don't necessarily have internet and PCs at home. They don't necessarily have the social capital or social network that can help them to land cool jobs. So really a lot of the way they look for jobs is opportunistically through word of mouth. And that's not very efficient, right? I mean, they end up getting whatever they can take. Whereas with JOB, what we've done is we've built a very simple cell phone app. It's actually not even a smartphone app. You don't need a smartphone to use it.
Really?
It works on any cell phone that has a browser.
That's interesting.
And we've even partnered with some mobile operators to make the data charges zero.
Wow, interesting, actually. Interesting.
Using the JOB mobile site. And what that means is that the jobs is completely free.
All right. So I think this fits in directly into what our conversation is this morning about the current trend, the current HR technology globally and across Africa. We'll come back to what JOB does and what is happening on the continent, because I like the fact that you guys have gone mobile, because mobile is one thing that we're talking about. Africa is mobile police, mobile holy, and is mobile forward. Yeah. So everything about Africa is mobile, and I like the fact that you guys have gone that route actually.
Yeah, so look, in terms of, trends in HR, this is something which is of interest to us because, the world over, HR departments are often, the laggards. They're often the ones who are most resistant to change. They're often the ones who are very stuck in their own ways. They're often the ones who really are resistant to adopting new technology. For them, new technology is like using a job board to advertise a job. What we're seeing actually over the last maybe 2 to 3 years is a lot of interesting new innovations in the HR space that's actually starting to get adopted. And, I think there were 5. We did quite a lot of research. Obviously, we operate in this space and we have a very global perspective because obviously, technology is something that can spread globally.
Yeah.
So we were looking at, in the world, specifically in the US and Western Europe, which are obviously the leading edge of most of this stuff often. What are the big HR type of tech trends? And we found 5 of them, which I can basically summarize for you briefly.
Yeah, please do.
And these 5 trends, they kind of span the 3 stages of the HR lifecycle. So the 3 stages, if you like it, are first of all, get the job, i.e. recruitment and onboarding. Yeah. The second stage is kind of do the job. That's once you start, there's training, there's culture, there's productivity, there's kind of what you do on the job. And then the third stage is basically get rewarded, get recognized, get promoted, get a raise. So those are kind of the 3 stages in the HR lifecycle, which HR departments are responsible for end to end. And the 5 trends really, which we identify, some of them sit across these 3 stages. Some of them are unique to a single stage. But the 5 trends are basically, first of all, there is starting to be adoption of AI-powered candidate matching tools.
And
what I mean by that is AI-powered candidate matching tools.
Can you unpack that, please?
Yeah. So up until now, recruitment has been often been a very manual process. Someone actually physically looks through CVs, screens through CVs to see if they're relevant or not. And one of the big trends is basically having software that can do that screening for you, or that can automatically identify suitable candidates based on your requirements without you even having to go and advertise the positions or even post ads on job boards, right? So the ability to have a software to be able to help screening, that means that recruiters don't have to spend hours sifting through CVs. They don't have to spend hours interviewing irrelevant candidates, right? And they can spend their time on more important type of things. The second thing is kind of also in the recruitment space. Obviously, referrals have always been a very major channel for recruitment.
Yes.
But now we're starting to see tech-enabled referral tools, effectively, which enable you to use your social media contacts and automatically identify relevant people for the job that you can refer. Even to extend your social networks through various ways. And big players like Google's Jobs API are also developing tools that are relevant in this area. The third trend, I would say, is really more about doing the job when you're on the job, and it really relates to training. Training is obviously a very important part of all corporate and even small business kind of employee programs. Training is important because it helps us to learn new skills and become more valuable. And up until now, training has either been offline and therefore, quite often very costly, or even if it's been online, it's been kind of a one-size-fits-all type of training. But what you're seeing now is the advent of personalized online training, and that is, again, web-based or cloud-based training kind of materials. You've heard of these massive open online courses like Coursera and Udemy. And those types of players are coming into the corporate space and really offering very personalized training, which basically tracks your individual performance, your individual progress, your individual, marks or aptitude, and then suggests specific courses just for you. Whereas your colleague might be suggested another course because maybe his level is not necessarily the right level. So this kind of personalized online training is very cool because it's enabling corporates to have a much lower cost way of doing training, but also much more targeted, much more specific, so that they can really get the most out of their employees.
I was actually going to say that it saves a lot of it saves the employers a lot of cost in terms of expenses to actually conduct it, because we have seen that some employers actually spend a lot of money training their employee, upskilling their employees, and the advent of these massive online courses has kind of brought down that kind of cost drastically.
Absolutely. Not just brought down the cost, but also increased the type of training that you can take. So this is something which is a major trend. Then the fourth trend is a very interesting one. So I don't know whether you've heard of a company called Zenefits. It's a Silicon Valley startup, typical type of Silicon Valley story.
The first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah, it was founded back in the early, I think 2012 or so, not that long ago, maybe six years ago. And it grew to become, more than $4 billion valuation company in a very short period of time. And the way they did this is quite interesting. I mean, maybe this is more unique to the US and developed markets than it is Africa. But obviously in America, the health insurance industry is very, very big.
Yeah.
And most employees, almost all employees, have medical insurance that the company provides them. And so what Zenefits did is, obviously, the insurance industry is very bloated. It's very antiquated. The way that they sell insurance is extremely old school. So what Zenefits did is Zenefits developed free HR software for SMEs, for small businesses. Because most SMEs don't use HR software.
Yes, we don't.
So they offered SMEs free HR software. And what they did was they used the same software to aggregate a health insurance provider's offerings so that the SMEs could then purchase their health insurance through Zenefits as opposed to through some kind of broker. And they were obviously able to get better deals and on health insurance. And Zenefits obviously took a cut. So Zenefits effectively became an insurance broker, a massive insurance broker. So they offered free HR software and they made their money by taking a cut, obviously, of the premiums, which was very clever because, I mean, if you think about it, any small business is going to buy, is going to take HR software if it's free, as long as it's good.
Yeah.
There was no cost implication for the small business. And at the same time, they got better deals on health insurance. And that's how Zenefits grew. It grew massively. But then, of course, afterwards, it became embroiled in some scandals, quite interesting scandals. I'm not going to go into details now. But the point is, this whole notion of free HR management tools that aggregate health insurance, that model is now being copied all over the world. There are companies in Japan, in the Middle East, in Europe, they're all copying this model. It's becoming quite a big thing, especially in the SME space. And then the final trend, I mean, this for me is the most interesting one.
Okay.
You know how like if you work in a corporate or a small business, you have this annual performance review, usually where your performance is evaluated by your boss, and that determines whether you get a promotion. And look, we all know it's bullshit. It's not meritocratic. Often people are being, if the boss likes someone, they'll reward them even though they're necessarily as good as the quiet guy in the corner who does an amazing job but doesn't get recognized. So now there's new technology tools that are enabling effectively crowdsourcing employee feedback. And so what that means is that, there are companies that are offering tools which everyone in the company can basically rate their peers anonymously. They can say, such and such did a really good job and I want to acknowledge him for that. And then the employer or the managers can look to see what the peers are saying about each other. And they're able to then identify people who are performing well, which they otherwise would have been invisible to them. And they're also using the same tools to kind of test the culture and see how people are feeling. Often management is very disconnected from staff and they don't know how their staff are feeling. But using these types of democratized crowdsourced tools, they can get instant real-time access in terms of how is this department feeling on a particular week. Are they feeling motivated? Are they feeling demotivated? Are they feeling under pressure? And to be able to get a sense of the culture and the feeling in the organization will give management a way to be able to remedy and fix the culture. And obviously culture is super important these days in terms of, building a motivated organization. So it's a big space, but in our view, those are the 5 top things that we're seeing really kind of moving the dial in the HR tech space. Right?
Okay, now looking at this 5, still across the 3 life cycle of HR management, what are we seeing in Africa? Is Africa also following this particular global trend, or we are yet to catch up in regards to what is currently happening?
Yeah, look, obviously, Africa is a very different context, and I would say South Africa is very different from the rest of Africa. South Africa. Some people wouldn't even say that South Africa is Africa, but anyway, look, I think Africa. I think a lot of the innovation is really happening around the first stage, around the recruitment, because obviously, some of the more sophisticated things like health insurance aggregation wouldn't even apply in Africa. I mean, maybe in South Africa it might apply, but most South African countries wouldn't. Online training, potentially it would, but again, given broadband penetration, it's probably less applicable. So I would say that the real innovation in Africa is primarily around matching, candidate matching, finding the right people for the job, and really solving the access problem, right? Because it's not just in South Africa people have lack of access. It's in most African nations, especially in the slightly poorer demographics, more rural demographics, people just don't have access to opportunities. And for me, like you pointed out, mobile is a major solution to this. The fact that mobile penetration is high now, even in rural areas in most African nations, means that mobile should be used as a tool to improve access to opportunities and access to information. For me, it's all about mobile. For me, mobile in Africa is driving everything, not just in HR, but across the board in tech. Mobile is driving everything. And in fact, we're coming up with things in Africa which don't even exist in developed parts of the world because they're not applicable. So for me, it's all about mobile, improving access to opportunities. That is the most relevant thing for Africa.
I think we might have to schedule a part 2 of this conversation. There's so much more that I want to talk to you about, but unfortunately our time is already over. And I hope if we call on you again, you're going to say yes.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been a pleasure. I'm interested in hearing, your feedback and your listeners' feedback as to whether this type of content's interesting. But yeah, look, happy to keep participating. I'm very passionate about job creation. I'm very passionate about economic growth in Africa. So anything we can do to help boost that, I think we should have that discussion.
All right, before I allow you to go, how can people check out more on Giraffe? Because I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I mean, just hearing you talking about Giraffe in the beginning actually just sparked something, in me as a person, as an entrepreneur. So how can people check out more about Giraffe?
Yeah, so if you're a job seeker and you're looking for a job, you go to job.giraffe.co.za.
Okay.
And you can make your CV on your cell phone for free. And if you're a business and you want to hire more than 10 staff, because we focus on high volume staff, if you want to hire more than 10 staff, then you go to giraffe.co.za and follow the instructions online.
Awesome. Yes, giraffe.co.za if you're an employer. But if you're looking for a job seeker, just go to job.giraffe.co.za. I think we're also going to try as much as possible put up the website when we publish this particular podcast. But thank you very much again for joining us on the show, and we're looking forward to having you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome then. All right, cheers.
Take care.
All right, bye. All right, that's about that. Very interesting conversation looking at the current trend within the HR technology globally, and also bringing it back home in Africa. Yes, Dr. Anish has spoken so much, and like I said, I want to have a part 2 of this discussion. We look at the three, the HR life cycle, the 3 major life cycle of HR, which is getting the job, doing the job, and getting rewarded. And of course, across the 3 life cycle, look at the current trend, globally, looking at how there is an increased use of AI-powered candidate matching. Yes, that is on the rise globally, and also tech-enabled employee referral. Also, as a means of as a recruitment channel. Also, that is also, we have seen that actually in Africa as well. And also, we have seen replacing tedious generic corporate training with personalized online learning, and we have seen how that has also drive down the cost of training by employers globally. And also we have also seen the rise of free or low cost HR management tools. We're actually seeing some free HR management software for small businesses, and he gave the example of the US company. And also lastly we look at crowdsourcing employee feedback to inform culture and also recognition, as well as performance management. Yes, that's more that we need to talk about around these trends, and especially in Africa, looking at, he mentioned that access is an important one for Africa because of the high, unemployment rate in our continent. So people need to be able to access platforms where they can apply for job and have access to available job openings and all of that. And of course, we spoke about other things, and I just think there is more that we can unpack, around this conversation. But that is where we're gonna leave it for today, and that brings us to the end of the show this morning. Yes, we have spent not just 90 minutes; we are just 5 minutes beyond our normal time. But I think you will forgive me for that. Yes, that's the end of the show this morning. Thank you once again for joining me. My name is Soji Akinabi. Before I go, yes, our HR Day Roundtable, the first edition is coming up in July. Yes, if you want to be part of that, drop Sibongile an email, sibongile@hitweb.co.za, or you can also drop us an email at info@africabusinessradio.com for more information on this, how you can participate, how you can be part of this roundtable discussion that we'll be hosting every month, just an offshoot of this particular show to be able to unpack or to talk about other issues that we're not able to talk about on the show. Yes, on the show, yes, we're going to be saying goodbye, but please stay engaged with us on the Africa Business Radio platform as well. We are Africa Biz Radio on Twitter, Africa Business Radio on Facebook and LinkedIn. From me, it is goodbye for now.
Human resources can no longer be regarded as a paper-pushing job. It is vital that the HR function is at the heart of your organizational structure, playing a part in all strategic, tactical, and operational decisions. It is about making employers realize that the most valuable assets in the arsenal are employees. HR is about achieving organizational goals through people and creating incentives that align employee objectives with the organization's mission statement.